So, welcome everybody to our canvassing training, Conversations on the Doors. This training will be largely conducted by Mitch Fallon from the New England Joint Board, Political and Communications Director, if I have that title right. We're very excited for this presentation. Before we get into that, we'll do a little bit of a brief DSA intro for a few minutes where we'll talk about, or I'll discuss a little bit of our chapter, the work we're doing, and our structure and our theory of change. And then we'll go over into hearing more in depth about the work being done by people in housing justice and in Medicare for All. And after that, we'll get into the training, a brief intro from about Unite Here, New England Joint Board, and then the training itself. So if I didn't say my name's Alexander Kolokotronis. I'm the co-chair, I'm the chapter co-chair of Central Connecticut DSA. So from that, thank you everybody. I wanna, before we hand it off to Mitch, I wanna highlight that this in part is a product of the work we've done with the Right to Counsel Coalition, the Unite Here New England Joint Board. Local is a part of the Right to Counsel Coalition. And so as we do this work, it's important to think intentionally about how we're not just signing on names to coalition stamps or anything like that. We're actually, again, actively engaging with partners, with partner groups who have something to offer us as well and work in solidarity with us. And and we have something to offer to them as well. And more than that, again, it's not necessarily some transactional thing, but us building a movement together. This in part is, again, coming out of the conversations we've had with various organizations, in this case with the NEJB. And I'm looking forward to now hand it off to Mitch to give us some more of the intro on NEJB and then get into the training.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Alex. That was a great intro. And before I even start on anything, I just need to thank you all for all the amazing work that you're doing. I mean, working on resolutions, getting bills passed, forming tenants unions, it's all very inspiring. Such great work that you're all doing for working people. So I have to start by thanking you. And again, before we really get going, I kind of want to do a quick vibe check with everyone to see what people's experience is with field work, canvassing, this type of organizing. Is there anyone who's very fresh to all of this? If you can do like a raise hand reaction, or if you just want to unmute and say, yeah, I'm brand new. And is there anyone who has experience doing it, who's been out in the field for political campaigns or just issue organizing, things like that? Okay, so I'm seeing in the chat and a few of the raised hands, a little bit of a mix here, which is good. So hopefully this serves as a little bit of a refresher for people, and we get to talk a little bit more about structure inside of organizing. So I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. Where did that go? Okay, so first, I really want to just give a quick presentation or show a video of some of the work that Unite Here has done. We were definitely the largest field campaign in the presidential election. We covered Florida, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and one other state that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. I personally was able to go down to Philadelphia to help with the campaign over there and help lead a team of about 10 people canvassing. It was such a great opportunity. Canvassing is honestly one of my favorite parts about doing political work, getting to walk the streets, meet with people, talk to them about the issues that affect their everyday life. And so I'll just show
dressed. Put your shoes on. Get ready for affordable health care. Get ready for a livable wage. Get ready to reclaim this democracy because it belongs to the people. Get up. Get dressed. Put your shoes on. Get ready. Let's win this election.
So we work to get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected. We work to get Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff elected. And we're really looking forward to working with allies across the various states to accomplish other goals that help working people as well. No, don't do that again. So for today, I really want to talk about this framework for thinking about change. This is from Dr. Mary Lippitt, the Managing Complex Change Model. And you really do need to incorporate each of these pieces to bring about change: vision, skills, incentives, resources, and action plans. And really that can be broken down into the two components: organizing and canvassing. Even when you're canvassing, you're still organizing. So organizing is pretty much everything. Vision is very self-explanatory. I think that you can't get anything done without a vision. And you all know what your visions are. That's getting Medicare for All passed. That's getting a tenant's right to counsel as a right for all tenants, and making sure that people have housing unions to fight for them against landlords who seem to always have the upper hand. So I won't spend too much more time on vision, but I will move on to the rest of them in a little bit more detail. With skills, the thing that always comes to mind for me and is something that then Boston City Councilor Ayanna Pressley would say all the time as she was running for Congress, which is the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. It really just resonated with me as what organizing is giving people who don't typically have a seat at the table some power. That way they can change things for themselves. And we need to come together collectively in order to do that. So thinking about skills, your vision should be rooted in the community that you're targeting change for. If you're not working with the community, you're working against them. And you really want to be doing that anyway, just because if you're organizing, the people who are experiencing an issue are the most likely to want to advocate change for it. So I really like the concept that Alex talked about at the beginning of the meeting with your core, your active, your supporters, and your base. I think I may have gotten that out of order a little bit, but these are going to be the core, the people who are experiencing an issue. You want to bring them closest to the power, partly because they're the ones who are most likely want to get involved, but also because they're going to be the best messengers for the solutions. They have the lived experience. They know the nuances in and out, and they'll be able to share their personal story on the door. So that's the first skill set that you want to ingratiate into whatever campaign you're working on. The second is just expanding that, again, like Alex was saying earlier, to allies and organizations with complementary skill sets. That's why I'm here right now, working for a labor union. Organizing and campaigning are what we do. So it's just good hand-in-hand complementary skill sets. And you want to keep building that out and out in that nice ringed model, like Alex showed before. But just getting the skill sets there is only half the challenge. How you work with those skills is a totally different thing. So thinking organizationally, I'm just going to present a couple of different models that you can think about. But of course, there's a million different ways to organize, or I don't want to keep using the word organize because then it's going to lose all meaning. But, you know, put the pieces together to come out with the action plan, I guess. So one is just a basic flat structure. You obviously need someone who is going to be handling a lot of day-to-day tasks, whether that's printing out materials, delivering things, educating, whatever that is. And then canvassers underneath. A lot of pros to this kind of flat structure is it's good for a small campaign. If you just need some people working on a lot of tasks and someone kind of leading the way, it brings a lot of good, clear chain of command to what needs to get done. But if you're getting into a very large campaign, you have a lot of people going out door knocking. That can be a lot of workload for one or a few people. And it also presents less opportunity for leadership growth. Another thing that I really like that you were all talking about earlier is moving people up from the outer edges of the ring, up a step, up another step until they reach the core. Finding those opportunities for leadership growth is so important. That we have someone to take on the next battle. And here's just a different option for that is kind of like a tiered structure. You can take turns with the field organizers and canvassers kind of cycling in and out of the organizer position. There's, like I said, a million different ways to do these types of things. And the good thing about a tiered structure is it's a little bit more condensed. You are kind of giving people the role of bring more people into these inner circles of the ring. But then on the other hand, again, some rigidity can lessen the inclusion and the opportunities for growth. And that's kind of skills. Moving on to incentives a little bit more, you really want to be bringing people along to fight alongside you. You want to be building solidarity wherever you can. And so inside of the framework, I'm kind of adding on the 10 rules of community organizing from Dave Beckwith. He's a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. They have a really great labor school specifically that Unite here receives a lot of our training from. Fantastic people over at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm gonna focus on the ones that are highlighted here. The ones that are unhighlighted are a little bit more straightforward. I'll still go over them. So rule number 1, nobody's going to come to the meeting unless you've got a reason to come to the meeting. Like I was saying earlier, you just need to find the people who are going to be involved. You need to present them with the arguments for why they need to get involved. And talking about that, nobody's going to come unless they know that about it. It's not just about advertising the meetings or holding them. Doing it regularly. I know that you have working groups, one for Medicare for All, one for housing. Can I ask how frequently those meet? Alana, Sky, Luke? Well, however frequently those meet, making sure that people frequently know about them and offering opportunities to train people for these campaigns is so important, because once they are ready to go, having these regular meetings, it's going to grow out that circle. I think to kind of add on to the circle metaphor, it doesn't have to be one fixed circle, though the sizes of those rings are constantly expanding. So having those meetings helps to expand whichever circle the person happens to be in. Because rule number 3, if an organization doesn't grow, it will die. So you want to be able to have those regular meetings, have people know when they are, where they are, be able to come and keep the wheels turning. And like we've been reiterating throughout this entire meeting so far, anyone can be a leader. If you have someone who's ready to step up and take on some extra roles, if you need posters made, if you need someone to design some literature, if someone has a new idea for where they can meet people to add into this, that's such a beautiful opportunity to elevate someone, test out new ideas, give them the opportunity to grow. Because moving down the list, rule number 5, the most important victory is the group itself. The fact that you have people who would be willing to stand up, take leadership opportunities, work on the group, find new ideas, is a huge victory in and of itself. The fact that you all are here tonight is a victory, and that should be celebrated as well. So again, like I was saying at the very beginning, thank you all for the work you're doing. Thank you all for showing up. This is a victory right now. Sometimes winning is losing. Another kind of important one, just about knowing what your goal is. So once we get to the action plan, I'll kind of try to circle back to this a little bit more. Know where you're going. If there's some shiny object off to the right that can be distracting to you, don't take it. Maybe lose that shiny object because it's a distraction from where you're going. So you may want to lose that in order to get the change that you're truly seeking. And I'm going to skip over sometimes winning is winning because that's super obvious. It's good to get the change that you're fighting for. But number 8, if you're not fighting for what you want, then you don't want it enough. You need to be setting these goals that are unattainable, or not unattainable. Set goals that are attainable, but things that are a little bit out of reach for you. You want to be able to see if you can jump to get it. If you're just setting things that you know you can achieve, did you really accomplish anything is kind of the big question. So you want to work in that mindset as well. And then 9 and 10, just celebrate and have fun. Find ways to get together, have community, because that's all of what community organizing is about, is finding joy in each other's company, finding solidarity, and working together. I just saw that the cookout was posted into the chat again. Exactly. Have fun at a cookout. Share ideas there. And just have a good time and keep moving forward with things. So that's kind of the incentives. I'll give another quick look at that. That way you can sort of burn it into your memory real quick. And then for resources, I'm going to jump out of this presentation because the whole point of resources is having what you need when you need it, being very prepared. And I think the best way to show this is with just a good example. So the AFL-CIO has been working on passing the PRO Act. The PRO Act would fundamentally rethink how the unionization process works in America. And the AFL-CIO has been doing some heavy campaigning on this. So I think if in terms of resources, the third best resource that you can have is cash. But that means that there's 2 above cash as more important. The first is people. You need people on your side to have anything be successful. People are power. That's again why I loved Ayanna Presley's quote there. The people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. You need people around. And then the second most important resource that you can have is knowledge. And there's 1,000 different ways, 1 million different ways to share that knowledge with other people. The most important thing that you can have is the talking points figured out. You need to know what the issue is, what the solutions are that you're proposing, and how people can get involved to bring about that change. So having talking points nicely packaged together, you can share this around with other people, and they can educate other people as well. Talking points are so important. Sample letters to the editor they have on here. Some people still read local news. Email chains out to people. And look at this, a PRO Act sample resolution. Again, very glad that Alana talked about having a Medicare for All resolution in New Haven. That's perfect, exactly what you should be doing. Putting pressure on legislators like Rosa DeLauro, who, despite being thought of as a progressive type of legislator, it doesn't surprise me that any legislator from Connecticut doesn't support Medicare for All. So having other people from Connecticut passing resolutions, putting that pressure on is fantastic. And just a bunch of other things in here, social graphics that share information. Like I said, people and knowledge are your 2 top resources. That's going to be the game changer. So you really just want to have that in your back pocket for whenever you need it at your weekly working group meetings. Just to pass along a URL to someone is perfect. So that kind of covers the organizing part of what I'm talking about here. So now we get to move on to actual canvassing, going out into the field, what's happening there. So here's just a quick image of myself in Philadelphia. What are the things that you should have when you're going door to door? Oh, I pointed that at a mask. It's supposed to point at the lit. So you need lit. If you're knocking on doors and no one's home, it does tree fall in the woods, no one's around to hear it make a sound. If you're knocking on a door and no one's there to answer it, you didn't knock on that door. So you want to have something to leave behind. That way someone can get educated on the issue that you're there to talk about. You want a bag to put this all in. Maybe carry some hand sanitizer in there too. I prefer a side bag. That way it's just nice and easy to access whatever lit and chum you're working with. And not just because it looks cool to have an identifiable campaign or organizational clothing. It's for your safety as well. That way, you know, you're walking around with something that identifies you as being part of this organization. And when you're knocking on a door, it doesn't just look like random person is coming to the door. It looks like, okay, this person from this organization is here to talk about something. And you want good walking shoes. It's a long day on the trail, so you want to be able to get around and not need to soak your feet at the end of the day. And just a few tips and tricks that I've picked up over the past few years with canvassing. Before you go out to wherever you're going to canvass, map out your route before you get to the turf. That way you just have an idea of how far you're going to go, how many doors you're going to knock, that sort of thing. And once you get there, drive around it just to make sure that, you know, are there a lot of hills? Are some of these houses have a million steps to get up them? And that's going to be a lot of energy. Maybe you want to hit that first. That way you're not winded by the end of the day. Or maybe there's a bunch of dead ends that you didn't see on Google Maps. So that's going to take a lot of time too. So driving around is just a good idea, and park somewhere in the middle. That way you can kind of try to snake your way around and you're back at your car or the train, wherever it is, by the end of your shift. Just a little bit easier. And very important, when you're at the door, knock mindfully. When I was in Philly, I knocked really hard on the door. And you should always be walking around in pairs, again, for safety, and then just to have someone to hang out with all day. My partner on the doors, after I knocked really hard on this door, he said, "You knock like a cop." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And the guy who opened the door opened very suspiciously as well, and also thought that I was knocking like a cop. So knock mindfully wherever you're canvassing. That way you're just giving like something loud enough for people to hear, not like a cop. And be conscious of how much time you're spending on the door. Some people will talk your ear off for a half hour, and you want to be moving on to the next door because, again, you want to be sharing this knowledge with as many people as possible in the amount of time that you have. Maybe once in a while, nice long conversation flips someone, but for the most part, be mindful of moving on. And very important, know where the nearest public bathroom is. Grocery stores, hotels, and police stations always have a public bathroom. I understand if you don't want to go into a police station, grocery stores, always a good bet. So find a grocery store, they always have a public bathroom. And, you know, if a lot of people aren't home, a lot of people aren't answering the door, or you just get a few bad conversations, don't get discouraged. You're going to walk up to a door and just have a really amazing conversation later in the day. and it's going to turn everything around for you. You're going to be really grateful that you pushed through and got to that door. If you're able to change one mind, it's really worth it. And bring a snack and water with you. You're going to be walking a lot. Maybe it'll be hot out. It's blistering hot today, for example, so you'll definitely want some water. And to look at a few action, or at least one action plan, here is something that I put together after Take Back 2020. It was a working document, so it started as an action plan and then built into a postmortem report. You want to be very clear about what your goals are. So for example, the Take Back 2020 campaign was organized by the Unite Here International Union for the purpose of electing candidates Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as President and Vice President of the United States, respectively. Very clear. It was Arizona, I think, was the fourth state that I was forgetting earlier. Have a timeline, know when things are happening, what's happening, whether or not your goals are shifting, and really be thoughtful and honest about what's happening. Part of this is to know what's going on. Part of it is as a historical record. So one day, if you're no longer with the organization, it's important to keep that institutional knowledge in place so people can learn from our mistakes. It's just so important to be honest with each other and with others. So that's always a priority, and putting together an action plan and a postmortem report. And to be very detailed about, you know, what you plan on doing. Even if you're putting together a script for canvassing, pause briefly for a response. Things like that are important, just that you keep them in mind, and to have kind of like a decision tree going on. So if one thing happens, you do this. If that doesn't happen, maybe move on to something else. Here's an example of a script for phone banking, where I personally don't like this script. So I'm going to show it to you as an example of something that I don't like. It goes, "Hi, is Alex home? My name is Mitch and I'm a union member volunteering to talk with our union brothers and sisters today. The general election is over, but we have one more job: elect 2 new senators in a runoff. Your union has endorsed 2 pro-worker U.S. senators. This election is crucial in shaping the direction of our country for years to come, for working families and our communities." What I don't like about that is how long it is. If you're on a door, if you're on the phone, especially like this is, and you're going through 4 or 5 sentences before you get to the point for them or a question, I wouldn't, but some people would throw the door in your face or just hang up the phone. You want to keep it short and sweet. And again, the good thing about this is it does have that decision tree of, if it's strong support, thank you for your support. If undecided, hey, let's talk a little bit more about this. And if they're just opposed, leave the door, reclaim your time, move on to the next person. And here's one that I do really like, because it is short and it gets to the point. "Hi, is Alex there? My name is Mitch. I'm calling with the grassroots team supporting Senator Ed Markey for re-election. How are you doing today?" Kind of gets them into a conversation a little bit, and you're able to get on to talking about what's important here. You're including them. The whole point of canvassing, campaigning, is you should be listening twice as much as you're talking. So something like this, where you're doing the decision tree, you're figuring out what's going to be persuasive to this person who's in front of you right now, is very important. So here's one that I just kind of like threw together real quick for, as an example, practice script for at least tenants' right to counsel. Is if you're a canvasser, you would walk up to the door, do a quick knock. My rule of thumb is if I'm in a city, I'll wait 10 seconds for someone to answer the door before deciding that they aren't coming to the door. If it's in a suburb and it's a larger house, I'll wait 20 seconds. If there's no answer, you leave it lit. If they do answer, you kind of run through this script. Let's see, where did I put Zoom? So that's kind of what I have to share about canvassing. I want to open up to any questions, comments. I know a lot of you said that you did have some mixed experience with canvassing, so I'm curious, how does this line up with your experience? Do you have any thoughts, any tips or tricks that you would want to share?
Please write stack in the chat to get on the queue to speak, to ask a question or share tips.
Yeah. Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, I love the idea of having some sort of clothing to identify yourself. I think that's can be really helpful. I would think that would be very helpful for both volunteers and for folks that you're kind of like knocking on the door of, just because I just think it would provide a kind of uniformity and make things a little bit more readable, which I think is useful. I also think the bathroom notion is a really good way to think about it, because that's something, especially if you're trying to, assemble people to go do door knocking. I can see, at least having some idea where some close bathrooms might be would be very useful. So yeah, I really appreciate those. And by and large, I felt like everything you said is stuff that makes sense to me. If I have any other questions, I will leave them in the chat.
Yeah, hello. Hold on. Let me try and change my camera. But anyways, I'll just keep talking. You guys can hear me all right? Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, I learned quite a bit. Just want to say I've door knocked in the city before, New York City, and one thing that I remember was during COVID times too, so it's probably a little bit different now, but during COVID times, we weren't allowed to go inside of a building because apartment complexes are pretty small. And so we went to like the park area and stuff, but the park area, you do have people who don't want to talk, but you can still give them literature. So that was nice. And yeah, that's pretty much it on that. Cool. Thank you.
I guess I would be curious if Mitch or anyone else on the call wanted to speak about like different contexts for canvassing. I've done a fair bit of canvassing for like electoral campaigns, and a lot of the things you said about like be mindful of your time, don't spend too much time on a single door, and the organizing structures looked familiar from those contexts. But working now in a tenant organizing space, having just started that work, it seems like spending more time with individual person, if a conversation's running long, maybe a structure that is more actively built around the idea of inviting people into leadership roles. And again, this is work that we've just started doing, and so I don't really know exactly what that looks like, but my instinct is that it should look a little different than like trying to hit 1,000 doors in a week to try to get the word out, like mobilization targets for turning out for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Could you or anyone else speak to maybe some of the differences in different contexts of canvassing?
I'll say I think that that's really true. What you're saying about with tenant union organizing is obviously you're working on maybe one specific building or one group of buildings that's owned by the same landlord. So the idea would be to spend as much time on that door as possible. Yeah, and I think that there is a little bit of a difference between informational canvassing versus political canvassing. So in a more informational sort of situation, that might be what you're doing with tenants' right to counsel or with Medicare for All. You might want to have a little bit of a longer conversation. That way you can educate that person as much as possible on that specific issue, versus political, where you may have more of a deadline of getting out the vote for one specific thing, where you just want to hit 1,000 doors in a day. So you're right, that context really matters here. So again, a lot of what I'm saying tonight is advice, but tailor it to whatever campaign you're working on.